There's a painting by Paulus Potter, cattle standing in a field, completely still, heads turned towards something off canvas. It's one of the stranger images in Dutch Golden Age art. The animals aren't grazing, they're listening. That image keeps coming back when you read about Orpheus, because the oldest accounts don't start with Eurydice. They start with what his music actually did. According to Pindar, writing in the 5th century BC, rivers stopped flowing when Orpheus played. Not metaphorically stopped. The current reversed. Rocks got up and followed him. Trees uprooted themselves and walked to hear him better. Wild animals sat down beside each other, predator and prey, and stayed still until the music ended. The Greeks had a specific word for this, thelxis, enchantment, or more accurately, the ability to hold something absolutely in place by sheer beauty. Orpheus had it to a degree nobody else in mythology came close to. He could stop physics, he could override instinct. The question the myth is actually asking, and it's worth sitting with, is why a man who could do all of that couldn't stop himself from making one small human mistake. That's what the story is about, not death, not love, trust. Eurydice's death, in Virgil's telling, is the one detail everyone gets right. Aristeus, a minor god of beekeeping of all things, was chasing her through a meadow. She ran. She stepped on a snake hidden in the grass. The snake bit her ankle. She was dead before Aristeus reached her. That's the version from the Georgics, written around 29 BC. Earlier Greek sources are hazier on cause. Some say she simply died young. But Virgil's detail matters because it emphasizes how arbitrary it was. No divine punishment, no curse, no grand narrative logic. She stepped wrong. And Orpheus, the man who had stopped rivers, couldn't do anything about it. The Poussin landscapes from this period have a quality that maps onto that feeling exactly. Figures in ordinary pastoral settings, a body in the middle distance that nobody's noticed yet, the landscape utterly indifferent. Nature going about its business. That's what Virgil's meadow looks like. Eurydice falls in a place of ordinary beauty, and the world doesn't pause for it. The birds keep singing, the grass keeps moving. Orpheus finds out later from someone else, and the grief, according to Ovid, was so complete that he stopped playing entirely. The man whose music had rearranged the physical world went silent for weeks. That's the measure of it. Going to the underworld was not unheard of in Greek mythology. Heracles did it. Odysseus got close enough to talk to the dead. But there's a difference between visiting and doing what Orpheus did, which was walking in through the front entrance with his lyre and making a case for Eurydice's return. Think about what that required. He had to get past Cerberus, the three-headed dog who guarded the gate. He had to cross the Styx, which meant convincing Charon, a figure who takes the dead, not the living, to row him across. He had to stand in front of Hades and Persephone, the two most powerful gods in the entire underworld, and argue. And he did it the only way he could. He played. Rubens painted this scene, Orpheus before the throne of Hades and Persephone, and what he captured was the weight of the moment. Not triumph, not supplication, something between performance and prayer. According to Ovid's Metamorphoses, the Furies stopped tormenting the damned when they heard the music. Tantalus stopped reaching for water. Sisyphus sat down on his rock, and Persephone wept. That last detail is in Virgil. Persephone, who had seen everything, every soul that had ever died, every variety of grief and loss, was moved to tears by this one man's music. Hades agreed to let Eurydice go. Here's the detail I find most interesting about the whole story. Hades didn't just agree, he cried. Ovid says it plainly. The cheeks of Hades were wet for the first time. Now, Hades in Greek mythology is not a villain. He's not evil, he's not cruel, he's just inflexible. He has one job, no one leaves. The rules of his kingdom are absolute. The dead stay dead. That's the law that holds the universe in order. And a mortal musician from Thrace walked in and broke it, not by force, not by trickery, but by making the god who enforces death understand what loss actually felt like. That is an extraordinary thing. The paintings from this period, Raoul's Orpheus in Hades, Corot's underworld scenes, tend to show Hades weeping while Persephone watches, moved but also somehow unsurprised. as if she recognizes what's happening. She did, after all, choose to stay half the year. She knows about loss, and she knows about music, and she knows about the space between them. The deal Hades offers is precise. Eurydice will follow Orpheus back to the surface. He must walk ahead. He must not look back. Not until both of them have crossed the threshold into the world of the living. Simple. One condition. 1. The ascent is the part that doesn't get enough attention. Corot's underworld paintings have this quality of pale grey silence, figures moving through a space where light hasn't quite arrived yet. That's the climb. Orpheus is walking upward through the dark, and somewhere behind him, Eurydice is following. He can't see her. He can't hear her footsteps. The dead don't make sound the way the living do. He has only the word of a god he had never met before today. You have to understand how long that walk was. The underworld in Greek cosmology is deep. The journey takes time. And he's walking ahead into darkness with everything he wanted directly behind him, and no way to verify any of it. He played as he walked, according to most accounts. The music was the connection, not visual, not tactile, but something the air itself could carry. And she followed the sound. That's the image that stays with you if you sit with it. Not the descent with the lyre, not the audience before the throne. This one, a man walking upward through the dark, playing, because it was the only way to keep the thread between them, and the distance between him and the surface was shrinking. The light was beginning to show, he could feel it. The rules said, wait for the threshold, wait until you're both across, and he was almost there. He turned around just before the threshold, not after, in defiance, just before, in doubt. Ari Schiffer's painting of this moment, and Leighton's version too, both capture the same split second. Orpheus looking back, reaching, Eurydice already beginning to dissolve. The expression on his face isn't guilt, it's recognition. He already knows, in the instant he does it, that he's done it wrong. There are several ways to read this. The most common one, the self-help version, is that he couldn't control his impulse. He loved her too much to wait, and that's not wrong, but it misses the more specific thing happening. He turned around because he didn't trust the music. He'd played rivers to stillness. He'd made Hades weep. He'd done something no living person had ever done, and at the last moment, in the dark, he needed confirmation. Not of Eurydice, of himself. Whether the thing he'd made had actually worked, whether the power he possessed had held, and the instant he looked back to check, it stopped holding. That's the part that's hard to get past. The music was enough. It had been enough the whole way up. His doubt undid the thing his talent had built. Eurydice doesn't speak in Virgil's version. She says only, farewell, then she vanishes. He reaches out. There's nothing there. Orpheus tried to go back. Charon wouldn't row him across a second time. He sat on the bank for 7 days, Ovid says, not eating, waiting for something that didn't come. Then he went back to Thrace, alone, and spent years in the mountains playing for animals and trees, refusing to speak to any living person. The Maenads found him eventually. They were followers of Dionysus, and there are different versions of why they killed him. One says Dionysus sent them because Orpheus had stopped worshipping him after Eurydice. Another says they were just drunk and violent, and he happened to be there. What every version agrees on is what happened to his head. They tore his body apart. His head was thrown into the river Hebrus, and it floated, still singing, downstream to the sea. According to Ovid, it washed up on the island of Lesbos where, and this is recorded with no apparent irony, it became an oracle. People came to ask it questions for centuries. A severed head in a temple, answering questions about the future. That's the Moreau painting. The head on the waters, still open-mouthed, the lyre beside it. Still making sound, still holding something in place. That detail doesn't resolve anything. It doesn't make the story end well. The most powerful musician who ever lived is dead, in pieces, his head floating to an island it had never been to, but it's still singing. That's what the story leaves you with.